This is RVTC's carpentry instructor, Josh Chamberlain, giving us an overview of the program.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to my lab. It's a little more space out here, so we'll do the tour out here. I'm going to give you kind of a quick overview of what we do in this program. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to stop and I'll try to answer them. We're getting close to the end of the semester. So right now I have two classes. I have my level 1 carpentry program in the morning, and then I have a level 2 program in the afternoon. In about a week and a half, 2 weeks, the intros will start. So I'll have a third program in between those two that's an hour long, intro for Springfield freshmen. So the lab is pretty much just what we've been working on in level 1 and level 2 so far. I'll start just describing kind of what we do in level 1, since that's where the kids start, and then we'll get into how it evolves and as they get into the next year. So the whole point of this program is obviously to hopefully train students with the skills, the knowledge, and the confidence to be successful in the construction field or industry if they decide to go in there. A lot of what we focus on here are technical skills associated with building. Construction is a huge field, obviously. So I kind of narrow it down to wood frame construction because that's a good introduction to the field for the students. But we touch base on all sorts of different types of construction, different phases along the way. Level 1 is really about the basics. It's really about just getting students comfortable with the tools and materials they're going to be using, getting them used to working in groups, which is one of the most difficult skills for them to really develop over the course of time. But it really is just the basics of all the skills you need for the trades, whether you want to be an electrician, a plumber, a carpenter, a concrete worker. They all use the same basic set of skills. So we're talking about things like construction-related math. That's a huge focus academically in my program. I always tell the students, I don't freak out if your math's not your strongest suit. This isn't math class. What this is showing you real functional uses for math that you probably have already learned many, many times, but never really knew where to apply it. So we're doing a lot of basic things like, basic order of operations around fractions, reading tape measures, that kind of thing. Basic geometry calculations that all tradespeople need to know, like how to calculate volume and area and perimeter of different shapes and sizes. And then I try to relate all of those math things into things that we're actually doing out here, right? So like, for instance, the easiest example is students have to figure out how much plywood they need to cover the shed, right? Well, you got 4 different walls, they're all different sizes. So they have to get the skill set built up to be able to take each individual side, calculate the area, figure out how much area is in a sheet of plywood, do that math process to be able to come up with what they need to buy, and then monitor their use to make sure that they're not wasting material that they hadn't planned on having. So it's a multi-step thing. But academically, definitely math is the biggest focus in here. I mean, we do introduce a lot of like technical document stuff as we get into plans and specifications. That's one of the modules that we do. But most of the functional academics in this class revolve around kind of math and using that to build and work in the construction industry. I got a little off track there, but the first thing we do in this classroom is safety. The bottom line is the first probably 3 weeks of school are really based on team building. So especially in level 1, a lot of the kids coming from multiple different sending schools do not know each other. So there's a lot of, team building, getting to know each other, figuring out who works well with other people. And we focus on safety because unless we have a baseline of safety where I can build a level of trust with everyone to be using everything appropriately, they understand what their expectations are, they don't have a lot of freedom to be able to do what we need to do. The other thing is I'm only one person watching 16 students, so there has to be a level of trust, especially when we get into some of the more potentially dangerous tools like the circular saws and that kind of thing. So the way I do training in here or safety in here is 2-pronged. The first prong is all the students in level 1 we pushed it up to the 1st of November, are completing OSHA 10 construction. So they all take an online OSHA class. The reason I do it that way is a lot of the stuff that they're learning on the online OSHA class, we are reiterating in class, so they're getting it from 2 different sides. But it also is very, very structured for them so that they can work their way through the safety kind of at their own pace if they feel like they missed something, they have the opportunity, because it's an online curriculum, to go back and review stuff. It's all tested. They get us OSHA certification at the end of the 10 hours. So that's a valuable credential for them when they go out into final employment, whether it's something in the summer or hopefully when they graduate into the field. So overall safety, the OSHA focuses a lot on things like job site safety, personal protective equipment, a lot of things that we'll touch on, but some stuff that I just can't talk about, like trenches and stuff. There's not a lot of opportunity for me to show people different trenching and stuff, but that's all covered in the OSHA side of it. The second prong of safety tack, if you will, is focused on individual tools and kind of scenarios. So if I was to sit 16 students down for a month and a half and try to do nothing but safety, I would probably lose half of my class by like week 4. So the other thing that OSHA lets me do is kind of balance some fun stuff during class time with the safety training along the way. But we start right at the very basics. Most kids roll their eyes when I say we're going to learn how to use a hammer correctly, but there is a right way and a wrong way to use a hammer, and we start right there. And then we move our way up through various different hand tools, everything from hand saws to marking and measuring tools. When it comes to hand tools, there's not as much safety involved because, a lot of the hand tools that we use on a daily basis are not cutting tools. They're marking, measuring, layout kind of tools. But there is some handsaw work and definitely some hammer stuff that we obviously focus on the safety. The largest safety training occurs around the power tools, obviously. So we start very small. Again, part of what my goal is with all the training, but definitely with the safety training, is not just building the skills, but the confidence. The confidence is really one of those things that students struggle with, especially early on. And I've noticed that if you can get them over the hump of like worrying about how they look or failing at running a certain tool or something, as we work our way through the rest of the tools, you can just see it being picked up faster and faster and a lot more ease in their approach to the entire thing. So we start with very simple things like a drill, a cordless drill. Pretty much every student has picked up a cordless drill and used it at some point, whether their family's in construction or not. So they're all fairly comfortable with that. And then we move on to different things like jigsaws. Very safe saw, not going to really bite you unless you do something, really egregious with it. But with each, and then we'll go to circular saws and miter saws. But with each tool along the way, it's a 4-part training. First part is I'm going to introduce the tool and demonstrate it, right? So in order for you to be able to understand what we're working with, I want to show you what it is. I'll go over the parts and pieces of the tool to get them some terminology, and so that as I'm explaining how to use it, they know what I'm talking about when I say you raise the guard or you adjust the fence or whatever it is. I will demonstrate proper use of the tool. So we basically huddle around that table and they watch me show them different versions of the cuts and all that kind of stuff. And we go through, as I'm doing this, kind of a safety program checklist for the tool and a correct operation. So there's the safety, obviously wear PPE, what are certain things around that specific tool that relate to safety. And then there's obviously correct application of the tool. So every year I have a couple students who their favorite tool becomes the jigsaw because it's the least intimidating tool. So they always end up trying to cut like an 8-foot piece of plywood with a jigsaw. And I have to explain to them, like, not the proper use of that tool. So we focus on what is the right tool for the right job, right? I don't want these kids going out to a job site, being asked to cut a piece of plywood and grabbing a jigsaw. That is not what we're looking to do. So we talk about the application of the tool and safety around it. So that's step 1, introduction, kind of overview of the tool, watch somebody who's used it use it. Step 2 is practice time. I'm very much a preacher of, especially with these students, like, you're not going to get any better at running a skill saw by watching TikTok videos. It does not happen. The only way to improve tactile skills is to repeat them over and over and over and over again. So part of them becoming comfortable with the tools is they get a bunch of times to just cut scrap wood over and over again without all this pressure of it being the wrong length or being the wrong cut or missing the line or whatever. They're just focusing on repping the tool back and forth again and again and again. And then we might spend, depending on the students and the tool, anywhere from 1 class period to up to like a week practicing just various different cuts with that tool. So that's step 2. So introduction, supervised practice. Step 3 is a written test. So basically everything that I gave for instruction they need to be able to reiterate back to me and pass a test. It's 100% or nothing. If they don't get 100%, they have to retake it. It's not a safety's not on a scale. It's yes or no. So they get 100% or they have to retake it. Once they get 100%, the fourth and final step of the safety training, and this happens with each individual tool, so it's a process, is they have to give me a practical demonstration of their skills. So we go one-on-one. I ask them to do a series of tasks with the tool, set it up, make this cut, make that cut, show me how you would adjust this, show me how you would adjust the blade. And I'm watching them and marking them off on a series of checklists. The end of that whole process, we both sign a piece of paper. And the reason I do this is I want it to be a two-way contract. And I say this to the kids every time we go to sign it. I say, I'm signing this piece of paper because I've seen enough out of you over the last whatever month or a couple of weeks that we've been training on this that I feel comfortable with your ability to operate the tool independently, somewhat independent, obviously in a supervised environment, but not with me standing right over the top of it. They're signing it saying, I feel like I've gotten enough instruction and I feel comfortable enough that I can operate the tool safely. So we're just getting on the same, just trying to make sure everybody's on the same page as far as what the expectations for that tool are, and that we all are working off the same information. There's none of this like, oh, you said I could do this, but no, we were all on the same page of what is appropriate, what's not appropriate, what's safe, what's not safe. So I found over the years that just going through that process with each individual student and each individual tool. So we're talking about an average of 16 students. I don't think I've had less than 16 students in level one. So 16 students times minimum of 5 tests apiece. So that's a lot of testing, or 5 tools apiece. So that whole process usually goes until about Halloween. Like I'll mix in some small projects for them to practice what they're learning along the ways, like the sawhorses. We might do birdhouses or bat houses, something kind of small, inconsequential, scrap wood based. But it's more just you get to practice the skills with whatever tool we just learned the last couple of weeks. So that kind of brings us to, like I said, Halloween, and then we get to the main focus of the class, which are the sheds. So the projects themselves are designed to be used throughout the course of the year as a teaching tool. And what I mean by that is I don't just sit the kids down and say, here's your shed plans, go. We talk about the different parts and pieces of the operation. Like, so for instance, we learn about floor framing, right? So we'll talk about what's a joist, what is subfloor, what are the rules about floor framing, how far apart those things have to be. So we learn the basics of floor framing, and then the students come out and within the same week or within days, they're doing what we were just talking about. So the idea is theory, practice, and we repeat that back and forth with all the different phases. So we've been learning about walls. Right before break, we were learning about walls. We've been continuing to learn about walls, and they've been building their walls for the last couple of weeks. Once they're done with walls, and we're kind of at a transition point because these gables have rafters in them, we're moving into kind of roof framing. So we're learning about roof framing. We're going to see how the things we're learning hopefully translate directly into what they're building. So the hope, the goal, the aim of that entire process is, much like my students, I didn't like sitting in a classroom most of the time. I learned best by doing things and saying, oh, that's how what you meant by that right there. So a lot of what we do is out here, and they get to try to practice what they have just learned. The other thing that I will do from time to time, especially with level 1 or even with level 2 a lot of the time, is as I'm roaming around and they're working in the shop, I'm kind of always keeping my eyes open for teaching opportunities. Like I said, construction's massive. There's no way I could go over every scenario that they would encounter if I wanted to in 10 years. There's not a chance. But what I do try to do is if I see something happening with one shed or one group, I will huddle everybody together around that situation and try to explain to them what's going on. So it's not like I'm bouncing around. I will give some individual instructions to students or groups, but a lot of the time, if it's worthwhile for the whole group I'll stop the class for a minute, just gather everybody around and use that 5 minutes of teaching right then and there. And hopefully they can take that back and check their own project and say, oh yeah, mine's in good shape here, or oh, we need to fix that too, or whatever it is. So kind of a real mix of classroom and lab with a lot of even the classroom instruction happening kind of out here in real time as we're working. They're real projects for real people. That's what I tell the students, meaning like this isn't the doghouse you built in 7th grade wood shop that's rotting in your parents' backyard. Like, we need to focus on quality. We need to make sure that this is something you are proud to sell at the end of the year and put your name on. There's plenty of, I drive around here and I see like 5 of the sheds I've built in the last 3 years or whatever. And like, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to know that one's mine or whatever. And that's part of the joy of being a carpenter is you get to drive around and see the fruits of your labor all the time. But that means they got to take some pride in it. So, I try to really harp on this is about quality, not speed. Every year I get one or two groups that tries to get through it as fast as humanly possible. They're usually the group that has to redo everything 2 or 3 times. And that's the other part of these is we don't take the approach of like, oh, it's good enough or what, like, because it's a teaching tool, our aim is to do it correctly. So if we make an error, we're not going to like Band-Aid it and throw it off to the side and be like, oh, well, next time do it right. No, we're going to take it apart and we're going to do it correctly, because if you do that in the field, it's going to cost somebody a lot of money. Here, yeah, it costs me a couple extra 2x4s, but that's the point of the program, is to make the mistakes here so that you don't make big mistakes out there, right? So we end up going backwards a lot. That's why we're on walls for 3 weeks, even though, these walls can be built by a carpenter in like an hour and a half, but it's not the point. The point is they need to be correct. They need to be, as we've discussed throughout the course of learning about whatever. So these will go all the way. We'll do walls, we'll do roof, we'll put roofing on them. We will side them. We will put exterior trim on them, and they will get sold at the end of the year. So, like I said, probably the most challenging part of these projects for the students is the teamwork aspect of it, and working with other students and learning how to communicate with other people to get a job done. And everybody laughs when I say that's a skill. That's probably the most important skill they learn in here, is how to, civilly, cooperatively, in a respectable way, work with other people to get something done. So I pick groups. As I'm doing my training through the first couple of months of school, I'm monitoring who shouldn't be put together, who should be put together, who's a strength that could help a weakness, that kind of thing. And I'll randomly assign groups with a little sprinkle of discretion in there. But the part of that goal is I want them to be a little bit uncomfortable and have to adjust a little bit, right? Especially with 4 different sending schools. I'm not going to put all the Green Mountain kids together. I'm not going to put all the BF kids together. I want them to mix and match. And it does show in my level 2. I mean, level 2 is one of the cool things about it is this point in the year, these guys have been together for a year and a half. They all come in, they say hello to each other. They're like a real group of friends that didn't even know each other a year and a half ago, but have bonded, and they do all sorts of stuff outside of school together, which is kind of crazy because they don't even live in the same town. So it seems to work. And it's I think that even though they don't like it initially, they do towards the end of level 2 come to appreciate the fact that they feel like they can walk into a situation and not be overwhelmed. So that's kind of level 1. Any questions? I have a tendency to ramble, so if you want to stop me, please do. So level 1, like I said, curriculum. I should touch on what we do for IRCs and curriculum. So our IRC is something called NCCER, the National Center for Construction Education and Resources. I think I got that. Nationwide training program. The idea is, the way I explain it to parents or students is, imagine you're a student, you graduate as a student from high school and you're sick of Vermont and you want to move to Montana. This is nationally recognized. So you can go apply to a job for construction in Montana, present this card, and that person out in Montana at least knows you have a baseline of skill to be able to hire you. It's kind of like a registry of carpentry skills. And initially when I started 5 years ago, it was not that popular or that well known around the area, but it's increasingly being used, especially by larger employers, even as an internal training thing. So it's really good that we can kind of loop that in with what's going on here, because like Vermont Mechanical, Vermont Heating and Ventilating, some of the bigger construction companies, they're all using it now as their like internal training program, because the fact of the matter is just not that many skilled young people. So they just hire laborers and try to train them in-house. And that's the program they're using. So these kids, having already completed it, are already a leg up when they go to apply for those jobs. So that's a series of tests throughout the year. I think it's 8 or 9 modules. Each module is about the stuff I just talked about. There's a safety module, construction math module, a blueprints module, a material handling.
Roofs, walls.
That's level 2,
Oh.
but yeah. Now I'm drawing a blank. PPE? That's a safety module, yeah. It's in the safety module. But anyways, it's those baseline of skills that are required for the trades. So the NCCR stuff doesn't include in level 1, doesn't include things like walls, roofs, and floors, like the specific carpentry related stuff. I include those as like prep modules in level 1 because they are in level 2. So the idea is, instead of doing a 3-week module on wall framing in level 1, where we talk about every single thing and overwhelm the kids, we're just going to get them to build a wall. And then in level 2, we'll talk about all the specific little parts and pieces and next.
So let's shift to level 2. We got about 10 minutes.
I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. So level 2 is different. Level 2 is about preparing the students. My assumption if they come back from level 2 is twofold. One, they enjoyed what they were doing and they can see themselves doing this down the line. So if that's not the case, that happens, but that's my assumption. So I try to treat level 2 a little bit more like a job site. Before I became a teacher, I was in the construction industry for years and years, running job sites and crews and that kind of thing. So I try to get them used to what that's going to be like. So whereas in level 1, it's about participation, everybody trying to get a chance to do everything as much as possible. Level 2 is not like that, because you go on a job site and if you're terrified of heights, you're probably not going to be much use on the roof. You can't, that kind of thing. So it's a lot more. I've known the kids for a year already, so I kind of know their strengths and weaknesses, and we try to attack the project as a total team instead of individuals doing this. So we built a full-size modular house in here. This year, this is going to Springfield Housing Authority on Pearl Street. It's a 2-year build because it's the site's pretty rough, and we want it to be quite complete when we're done. So it's always a little further behind than the typical 1-year flip around. But we are about to frame walls. The lumber was supposed to show up today. Snowstorm threw a wrench in that, so it's coming tomorrow. But if you were to come a week from now, you will see quite exterior walls. So we'll build walls. We do window and door installations. So we work with WW Building Supply out of Newfane. They've been great partners for us for many, many, many years. They bring somebody from Marvin in for a full day. We do a full Marvin certified installation course with them. Students get to put the windows in with Marvin reps right here, right then. Probably not this year, but next year students will do all the rough plumbing. We'll do all the rough electrical in there. So they'll be working side by side with real electricians, real plumbers to do that work. We'll do all the drywall, a lot of the insulation. So this year will be more of the rough framing and kind of exterior stuff. Next year will be more of the finish work and that kind of thing. And the hope is that over the course of 2 years, both groups of students can get a really good kind of broad view of what's available. The last part that will end on is, besides building this, which is obviously the primary focus, we do some more NCCR modules, the ones more specifically and detailed on wall framing, roof framing, and thermal insulation. I tend to kind of change those up year to year based on what the house project is presenting. This year, we're doing the framing and we'll be insulating, so those made sense. Next year, it might be something along the lines of interior finishes or something like that. It's more aligned with what they're doing. But the other part is they all do a job shadow activity. So all of my level 2 students have been doing their own research and reaching out and doing all that stuff with local community businesses. We brainstorm who you might want to work with, what kind of work you're interested in, everything from, dirt site work guys all the way to painters and finish carpenters and everything in between, as long as it's relevant to the construction field. My one rule is no nepotism. I don't want you going to work for dad and calling it a job shadow. That's not a job shadow. So they are all responsible for doing all the communication themselves. Again, this is back to that adulting skill thing. Like part of what we're teaching here are some of the adulting skills. So they have to research, they have to make phone calls and emails to themselves. They have to arrange their timing as far as the schedule goes for them to visit the place. They have to communicate back and forth between their initial and their visit, which is, checking in, confirming things are still going. And then they do a series, like a packet on it. So there's a research phase. There's a questions that, thinking about questions you want to ask your presenter as you're on your job shadow phase. And then there's a reflection phase at the end. And yes, part of it is I want them to go through the process of researching and all that stuff. But the biggest goal of the whole activity is getting them networking out in the local scene. Like that's really what it is. And through this process, I know several of my past students who have ended up working directly for the companies that they went and did their job shadow for me. So getting them out there, getting them in front of real employers who want them, need them, are willing to work with them. So that's going to be happening in the spring. I try to time it during construction slow season so they have more available attention and time for the students. So they're doing that between now and April. Once April rolls around, we're pretty much out of luck. So that'll be happening next month. Any questions?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chamberlain.
I guess I just one.
Yep.
So not a day goes by in the day job for housing is not a
Yes.
stuff. So obviously all the programs are important. Intentionality, experience, just as you're seeing students, as soon as you can get them through the program, if they are skilled, qualified, disciplined, they'll get fired.
Absolutely.
And they got to have 10, 20, or 15 more. So
Absolutely. And that's honestly there's no lack of opportunity for the students at all. The biggest challenge for them initially getting out there is really just it comes down to maturity level and ability to communicate with adults, which is why I spend a lot of time focusing on, especially in level 2, because, I would rather have it. So I'm just going to take 2 minutes for a quick story. Okay. I had a student here who's very, very has a lot of anxiety, especially around talking to adults. He goes, part of the job, part of what we're trying to do is get him through job shadows. So yesterday, he's been avoiding this for a little while. Yesterday, I basically sat him in there alone. We made a phone call to him. Okay. That was terrifying. Didn't do very well, but he did it. And the next one will be a little bit easier. And the next one will be a little bit easier. And the next one will be a little bit easier. So I'm trying to help them while they're in the safety of this place, just like learning skills and doing them correctly. Those things that are scary and overwhelming, also trying to be there as a supportive person to help them do it initially. And that idea that they will be more comfortable with them themselves. So I really do look at my job as not just training them how to read and tape measure and that stuff, but preparing them for adult working life, because that's coming fast for a lot of these students. And a lot of them have really good drives and work ethics that just need to be kind of directed and encouraged to, use that energy for something useful instead of, games all day or whatever. You've got a lot of energy. So appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So, and we will be, before we leave here today, asking for a special meeting early next week to deal with items B, C, and D. That's it though, right?
Yep.
Okay. Any public comments? Seeing and hearing none, let's go to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to accept, please? Andrew and
I'll second.
And seconded by Jess. Any thing of note on the consent agenda here?
Let's see. So, yeah.
Bob,
Yes.
can I just say something? I have a budget meeting starting at 5:30, so I have to step out at that point.
I understand.
Okay.
We'll get to the part I think that you would be interested in commenting on before then.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you.
So enrollment update, we're 23 students below where we were last year, and that's a 1 student change from when we were talking at our last meeting. And for our financial report, I've mentioned this before, that we had kind of $38,000 hanging out there that we were trying to get from the legislature. While I still have my fingers crossed that that may come through in the Budget Adjustment Act, based on conversations I've heard, I think that's getting less and less likely. So I just wanted to throw that in now so that you know that we're kind of looking at a potential $36,993 deficit for the end of the school year. If you have folks have questions about why that is or what the funding is, I'm happy to talk to you about that. And that's what I've got for the consent agenda.
Any questions for Derek on any of those items or anything in the consent agenda? Okay. If not, those in favor of accepting, please raise hands or say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. All right, old business, VTVLC, Ashley.
Hi, everyone. As I said before, Happy New Year. It's good to see you. We'll start off with our financial report. We are pretty much where we were, right on par where we need to be. We've had some shifts in our budget just primarily due to insurance changes. But other than that, we are remaining steady and strong. So that is all set. Any questions about that one? No? Okay. It's really difficult. We have enrollment numbers. Oh, sorry, I went out of order. In your documents, let me go back to number 2, which is our Collaborative Diploma Program, MOU. So we generally recall it CDP. This is for the non-operating towns or districts that we have, oftentimes known as school or choice towns. This is an agreement that we have with White River Valley, Richford, Rochester. And we use this agreement so that students who live in non-operating towns can attend and enroll in that school and then come to VTVLC full-time online. So this document we are looking to have the board take a look at. Any changes to that document really reflected our changes in our partnership agreement and our vocabulary that we're using. And in general, it was just changes in like dates in the document. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be seeking approval of that for next board meeting in February. Our enrollment numbers, these were pulled in December and everything has shifted. Quite a bit of our enrollments, we're ending our semester quite quickly here, and we will be enrolling for our spring semester. So in addition, we've also picked up a few other custom projects. So it's always difficult to talk about enrollment numbers, but I will tell you that our enrollments are continuing to be strong and we're expanding with custom projects for the second semester. Any questions about those? December was a short month for us. It really felt like. So there wasn't much to report on, but we did have an incredible pottery event. We had 2 different locations. We had one in Burlington and one in Stowe. And then we did have a guest speaker in Miss Hardy's math class. So I will have more to share about events that we're doing in January, but December was a quick and a short month for many of us. So not much to share. And Bob, that's all I have.
Any questions for Ashley on any of those items or anything with VTVLC? All right, as always, thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, everyone.
Statewide CTE update, Derek.
Again, it was, like Ashley said, a short month. CTE directors are looking forward to being in the card room at the State House this Wednesday, the 14th. The CTE directors didn't have a solid consensus of where they wanted to go or what they wanted to ask of legislature. So I want folks to be prepared that we might have to be responding to things people are presenting as opposed to kind of being out in the lead on that. So just a heads up on the environment. And word on the street is there's some legislation on the governor's desk around CTE that hasn't been released yet. So if you hear something before the rest of us, let us know.
I will do so. Governor had his State of the State address today. Budget address, I think, is next week, and I think you will hear, if there's anything lurking, you'll hear about it then. So, any questions on statewide CTE stuff? All right, union support staff negotiations.
They're ready to negotiate now. So we've got to have a budget or a committee meeting, and they're looking for dates this month on Monday or Tuesday where the committee can meet.
Okay. So you'll reach out to the committee and.
Yep, we'll get that set up.
Upon this advisor's return from vacation.
Yeah.
Right. Any questions on that? All right. So to be honest, kind of the main event here. And Sarah, we got it on before you had to leave. So FY27 Budget Committee update. Things are going along swimmingly until this week. And so, Derek, you want to sort of give a sense of what's happened?
So we learned Monday that it's likely that Fall Mountain will not be sending us students next year. As we've talked about before, all revenues from Fall Mountain are realized in the year students attend, whereas Vermont pays over a 6-semester average. So the funds hit us a little harder, a little faster from there. So we're looking at a likely reduction in revenue of $206,774. The budget, had a budget that I think we'd all agreed on we were going to present. The budget committee will be meeting tomorrow to work out what we can do to address the gap in revenue.
Yeah. And Sarah, if you want to add maybe a little color as to kind of the situation, I think you alluded to it in previous meetings, but this isn't about RVTC. This is about a significant budget.
This absolutely is not about RVTC. There is a lot of support for RVTC here. It's just that we have been hit by an incredible budget crunch, and the tax projection just is unbearable, and there's no way we'll pass a budget. So the board asked the administrative team to make some very significant cuts, and they worked very hard and very long trying to find where they could do the cuts, and it's going to affect it's cutting into the bone. We're going to strongly affect students more than just the tech students, and I spoke very strongly about that. Thank you, Derek, for saying that you thought I had spoken well. And everyone here, they're starting to gather for the budget. We're having a joint meeting tonight, so that's why I keep muting myself, because there's noise in the background. But it's a very difficult decision. But and I spoke to trying to have the students there in first year be able to finish their second year, and that just financially that just was not going to be able to happen. So it's not been absolutely finalized yet, but I think that building the RVTC budget based on that it will, I think, makes sense. So.
Yeah, so we heard about this on Monday morning. I spoke to Alyssa Bascom, who is the board chair. I know both Alyssa and Sarah particularly were very, very supportive of RVTC at Monday night's meeting. I watched it online, as I know Nate and Derek did as well. And I get the conundrum. I think there's a longer term discussion about how do we maintain a relationship with Fall Mountain that works for everybody. This is part of with Scott in the room, something we've spent decades literally on.
Yeah, we've been working on that for a long time. So.
Yeah. So, but that's not going to be solved by next week. So I appreciate the board's predicament. I appreciate your and Alyssa's support for us, and hopefully that gives some context for the situation we're facing.
Well,
right.
Busy.
Yep, it's very hard.
All right. Can you give us some sense, Sarah, of the hole you're looking at? Because this is a piece of a bigger hole.
This is a piece of a much bigger hole, yes. And we don't want to go down the same negative rabbit hole that Claremont went down. So.
Understood. Yeah. All right. Any questions of Sarah, or any questions about this issue?
And then I'll mute myself because it's getting louder and louder over here.
Thank you.
This could be a smaller case study for what Vermont is going to end up looking at. What is really important, and what do we value, and what do we have to cut? And it's hard to this last minute for them too, right? They're doing this within a month, and it really begs what is really important. And that takes a long time to really figure out, and it doesn't do it just in a month, but that's where they are. But I think Vermont's going to end up that place over the next few years too, and it's just hard.
Yeah. But as a practical matter, we need to have a budget
Yeah.
to send to the voters. So we've got a few days or a week really kind of to nail that down. So I know administration has some ideas, budget committee will look at those and to be honest, let's talk about that now. What would folks' availability be for a meeting next Monday or Wednesday, ideally, at 5 o'clock?
Either.
Neither, I don't think.
Neither, I heard.
I said either.
I know, I heard
Yeah,
neither
okay.
from this end. I heard
You
neither
were
from
in
the other.
either, I was in neither.
Yeah. Chris?
I have a BFUHS board meeting on the Monday, and I think Wednesday is probably fine.
Okay, Monday at what time?
What time is my board meeting?
Yeah.
6.
Okay, we'd be done by then, I would think.
Well, I do have to say, we are also wrapping up our budget, so there's a very good chance that we will do budget as
Okay.
early as 4:30, because that's commonly what we do. So, yeah.
Kate?
So,
Sorry, Sarah. Kate, who's sitting by the fire. it looks
Yeah.
like.
Well, I'm in my car, unfortunately. I wish I was by fire. I cannot do Monday, but I could do Wednesday after 5.
Okay. And I know
And
that it's about as late as we can push it is Wednesday.
Yeah, we can't push it any later than that. We can use Tuesday too. I don't know.
I can't. How about Tuesday at 5? That's not great for me, but
Again, I don't think I have any conflicts with Tuesday either.
I prefer to do Wednesday, to be honest. I know.
I have another budget. We have our deliberative session, we have a budget hearing on Wednesday. So Wednesday's at 5, it starts at 5:30.
And then the forum on Wednesday.
What?
Kelly can't do it. And Sarah can't.
So I heard Chris, Kate, me, Andrew, Jess, and
All on Wednesday,
yeah.
our positives for Wednesday.
So that is quorum, I'm pretty sure.
Hold on, yeah, right here, sorry.
Because that's 3 sending schools and 2 privates.
And some change.
Yes. Watson and Jetson.
Jen, Kate, Chris.
Nichols.
Chris
was a yes.
Wednesday.
Yep.
Kelly's a no. I don't know what I said. Sarah said no.
Yep.
Jen said yes. Bob said yes. Yes, it will be tight as long as everyone comes. and
Yeah.
says that
So the
they
other
want.
thing that I'll put a bug in everybody's ear is the board needs to sign the warrant, if you all recall. So we will need to get those signatures done like immediately. So we'll coordinate. Tina will reach out to you if you're not physically at the meeting next week to arrange for that.
Correct. If we can't do it Wednesday, I have to have signatures on Thursday because I have to have it to the newspaper Thursday morning.
Yeah, Kate?
Yeah, this isn't about scheduling, but I just want to say, like, the small increase that we talked about last month for the kind of the tuition increase, like that in itself was a hard sell. So I want to make sure that we don't want to be in the same position as Fall Mountain if the tuition hikes come back even higher. So just sending that message to the budget committees. We all are going to have issues passing budgets and can't support a significant increase to our sending school tuitions.
Understood. Understood. Thanks, Kate. All right. Any other discussion on that and all things associated with the budget?
So we have determined that the special board meeting is going to be Wednesday at 5.
Correct.
I guess I would say, kind of on the heels of what Kate said, I would find it really useful if, when we come to our meeting on Wednesday, any changes relative to what's already been told to our districts from resolving this issue, it would be great. It would be useful.
We understand.
Okay.
And we're going to be likely looking at reductions. I'm not super crazy about spitballing that in a meeting when the budget team hasn't met yet, but.
Sure. No, I'm not asking for it now. All I'm saying is something as simple as you put together your budget locally, we gave you this, now it's this. Just that simple.
Understood.
I mean, all the other information matters too. But
Yeah. Understood. Okay, any other discussion on that regarding the budget committee? So we're meeting tomorrow afternoon, so appreciate everybody's thoughts on that, and I appreciate the staff's work on all of this and kind of a hurricane. Okay, moving on.
Bob, I'm gonna close out because we're getting ready to start. Okay.
Appreciate your
All
help,
right.
Sarah.
All right. Bye, everybody.
So policies, third time around for policies B5, B20, and B21. These haven't changed, have they, Nate?
Nope.
Any questions or concerns about any of these from anyone? All right. So if not, I'd ask for a motion to approve the third reading and adoption of policies B5, employee unlawful harassment, B20, personnel recruitment, selection, appointment, and background checks, and B21, professional development.
So moved.
Or Chris, and I saw Andrew. Any discussion on that motion? If not, those in favor, please raise hands or say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. All right, second time around for policies B1 and B2. And again, these have not changed.
No change.
Any concerns about either of these? We'll get another crack next month too. All right, we look for a motion to approve the second reading and to warn the third reading, policies B1, substitute teacher, and B2, volunteers and work study students. Would someone make that motion, please? Andrew and Jess. Sorry, Kelly. Any discussion on the motion? Those in favor, please raise hands or say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. On to new business, the FY25 audit update. And you were Christine.
Yeah, I'll take that one. So I just want to give you a quick update because I have not yet gotten a draft audit from the auditors. They've told me that early next week. They're just behind in their workload. There's been a sort of a change in the general overall procedures where there's another layer of auditing of the auditors by and it's just slowed them down in their workload. So we had a good clean audit. It's just, I'm just waiting on a draft. And then once I get the draft, we turn that around for a final audit pretty quickly.
Right. Any
Do we have
questions?
any sneak peeks? Do we have,
No, I mean, it was all good. There wasn't anything. It was just, they're just behind in their workload.
overall surplus, overall deficit?
It is just what I had said, which was like 300 and what was it? 800 and something, or I mean, it was under 1,000.
For the
Okay.
good.
Surplus. Yeah,
Yeah, no findings.
no findings.
Why is Hodgson looking for trouble when there's no trouble? Oh, man.
I'm optimistic that you were going to say that we got, let's say randomly 206,000. That's what I was hoping for.
Okay, so we, as noted at the beginning, we're punting on items B, C, and D because those relate to the budget. So we will tackle those at next week's special meeting. So more policies. The first time around for policies related to possession and administration of emergency medication, education records, tobacco prohibition, and electronic communications between employees and students. Nate?
Yep. So C71 emergency medication. This is a model policy. It's new to us. It ensures RVTC follows state law for possession, administration, and storage of emergency medication. It allows the nurse or trained staff to administer emergency medication and permits eligible students to self-carry for asthma or severe allergies. It also outlines required communication with families and necessary authorization forms.
So a good question that was asked before the meeting started is, since when does RVTC have a nurse? We don't, but someone want to explain how that works?
Right. I think we partner with Springfield. So we pay for some of their nurse, from my understanding, budgetarily. And this connects to the work that they do and how we serve students in this building.
And it really comes into play on like field trips and things like that, where students are going to be offsite. That's where this is most frequently. The asthma stuff is all the time, but they manage keeping track of those forms for us.
Yep. C1, educational records. There are no changes to that policy from the prior one. This is just an update in review. So The next one is B7, tobacco prohibition, proposed model policy revision. Reorganizes this policy to improve clarity by separating the policy statement, definitions, and administrative responsibilities into clearer sections. It updates and standardizes language around school sponsored functions and explicitly reinforces that the prohibition applies at all times to students, employees, and visitors. The changes do not alter the core prohibition language, but aligns the policy more closely with the current VSBA model formatting. And then B8, electronic communications between employees and students. There are no changes to that. This is just an update and review.
Any questions on any of those four from anyone? Okay. And again, those will come around 3 times.
I think these are the ones that I cannot open. I don't know if other people could open them, but can you resend them?
Yeah, I couldn't either.
Okay.
No,
Thank you.
that's,
Oh.
I had to, because it was such a big file, I had to zip the file out.
Mhm.
I may have to send it in 2 emails, but
Okay.
because it was such a big document, but I will resend it.
Thank you.
Given that, is the board comfortable moving forward with approving the first reading, or would you prefer we did not?
I'm comfortable with the summary that we got and the opportunities to pick it apart later on if we wanted to, which I don't, by the way, but.
Just making sure. Just making sure. All right, so I would look for a motion to approve the first reading and to warn the second reading of policies C71, possession and administration of emergency medication, C1, education records, B7, tobacco prohibition, and B8, electronic communications between employees and students. Would someone make that motion, please? Andrew, and seconded by Bez. All right, any discussion on the motion? Those in favor, please raise hands and say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. All right, superintendent's report.
On December 3rd, Pre-Tech went to Wayland for career exploration. The 3rd and 5th, Kelly Broker Campbell was with Bellows Falls Middle School doing CTE exploration. December 4th, 11th, and 18th, health sciences students were in health career exploration presentations with Southern Vermont Area Health Centers. They learned about dental hygiene, ER medicine, and practice hands-on skills with VR headsets. December 6th, we hosted the first LEGO League Springfield qualifier and had 6 RVTC affiliated teams. December 8th, 9th, 15th, and 16th, Health Science Level 2 students started their LNA clinicals at Springfield Hospital. Thank you to them for being willing to host us for that. It's super helpful and really makes it easy for students to access that, which is very much appreciated. And they have their licensure exams coming up. December 9th, horticulture was at Game of Logging training at the Springfield Dam. And criminal justice traveled to Concord for a tour of the New Hampshire Police Academy and the 911 Communications Center. The 10th and 19th, Pre-Tech was back at Wayland. They've been a great partner, showing us the many, many different things that they do and opportunities right here in our community for students. On the 11th, Kelly Broker Campbell was at the ACTE conference where she was a presenter in Nashville, Tennessee, and she presented ways to build relationships with middle school students and build the CTE pipeline, and reported that she had a very full room and it was more than she anticipated, and it went really well. On the 13th, the RADs competed in Kearsarge, New Hampshire. On the 17th, Human Services visited the Southern State Correctional Facility, and 8th graders from Charlestown Middle School and Vilas, Bellows Falls, Green Mountain, and Riverside all visited here to learn about CTE pathways and what we have to offer for them here. On the 19th, we celebrated Students of the Corner with a culinary arts program. It was 2 great meals. Thank you to Chef Kelly for pitching in and making that such an awesome event for us. And congratulations to all the students. Scott, did you usually read all these folks' names? No. Okay. It's all in your packet. Please take a look. If you see them in your schools or community, give them props because they did a wonderful job last quarter.
I might have done it when I first started, but then I got elbowed by mom and didn't do it.
After a decade, some of the practices blur a little bit. On December 20th and 21st, the RADS hosted a Holidays Vex tournament. There were 35 teams and 100 kids here, which is amazing. The 22nd Level 1 Health Sciences trained in basic life-saving skills, CPR and AED, which is a requirement for most health occupations. And on the 22nd, they visited Sterling House, and instead of giving each other like Secret Santa gifts, they all picked a senior living there and did it for them, which was a really thoughtful way for them to give back to the community. I had some OLC, VTVLC meetings on the 1st and the 9th, child care counts meeting, Southeast Vermont Superintendent's meeting, budget committee meetings, VACTED meetings, and CLNA training, but that's way more boring than all the awesome stuff our kids do.
Great. Questions for Derek?
Yeah, just back to the students who were recognized. I think in the past, maybe we had the schools that they were from, and some of them I can identify as BF, and I don't know that I got all of them, but
I'll get that fixed and resent out to you tomorrow, or to everybody tomorrow.
That'd be great.
great. Thank you.
A good catch. Any other comments or questions for Derek? And do we have any other business? We do not need an executive session tonight. All right, so again, thank you for rolling with us on all this stuff. So we'll have a special board meeting next Wednesday, January 14th. The next regular board meeting after that will be February 4th. The annual meeting is February 26th in the evening, and then obviously town meeting day is March 3rd. So unless there's objection, I will call the meeting adjourned at 5:34. Have a good night.
Yeah, before you shut down, I have a question for Derek and Scott, but not related to the meeting here. So,
Okay.
but I just wanted to stay on for a second after everyone else is gone.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.